Everyone. I'm just going to see, I know we are a little late getting started, but I wanted to offer a, a melody they wrote to one of Baha'u'llah's hidden words, and he is the prophet, founder of the Baha'i faith. And the hidden words are a combination of writings that if we only had one of him, this suffice to progress our civilization and grow our souls and make us better people. So this one, and as you will notice, sort of redefined what that means. And it means basically that justice requires individual investigation of truth, independent investigation of reality. So, oh, son of spirit, oh, son of spirit, the best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice. Turn not away therefrom if thou desirest me, and neglect it not that I may confide in thee. By its aid thou shalt see with own eyes, and not through the eyes of others, and shall know of thine own way, and not through the knowledge of thy neighbor. Ponder thy heart, how it behooveth thee to be. Verily, justice is my gift to thee, and the sign of my loving kindness. Set it then before thine eyes. The best beloved of all things in my sight is justice.
Sandy, this was so beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Friends, welcome to our meeting. Our presenter, Dr. Ahdieh, is going to tell us about the story of Harlem Prep School, a community school in New York City in the 60s. Dr. Ahdieh has had a distinguished career in education in New York. His proudest achievement, according to him, is to have been one of the founders and assistant headmaster of the Harlem Preparatory School. The school is credited with helping numerous people to rise from poverty to a better life. Dr. Ahdieh was born in Tabriz, Iran, not far from the famous city of Shiraz. He's a sixth-generation Baha'i, his ancestors figuring amongst the first in Tabriz to accept a new faith, the Baha'i faith, Babi faith in Iran, and many were persecuted for it. Seeking to forget the sad and oppressive society that persecuted minorities in Iran, he set out to America at the age of only 17 to find a better life. And it seems that that life in Iran and the challenges that he experienced there prepared him for his life in America and for the role he played in the formation of the Harlem Prep School in a very divided era in this country. Dr. Ahdieh has several books, but I'm not going to take more time describing his achievements. I like for us all to listen to the story, and then at the end, if we have questions, we can ask questions. Dr. Ahdieh, please kindly unmute yourself, and I'm going to actually pin you as the main, instead of leaving you in the gallery format. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mona John. This was a lovely introduction, especially the first part when you gave of my village and my and that even though it was not part of my plan for presentation, but I feel like I should say a few words about that aspect of my life, and indeed, actually, it's related to what happened later when I came to America. I think, as you said, that my family came from a small village called Niriz, is in the south part of Shiraz, about 200 kilometers in the southern part of Shiraz. It in around 3,000 years, and pretty much is an agricultural town. Has not changed much, probably in thousands of years. Whenever I see a movie about the life of Moses, I'm seeing old time Jerusalem and holy. It reminds me so of a village, but it seems that they haven't come out yet from those periods in that place. There is hardly, there's no electricity, there was no water, there was riding on the donkeys was our means of transportation. No means, I was sharing with a friend yesterday, my doctor called, had a video conversation with him about my sleep apnea. And I was so impressed that I can talk about my physical problem through. So I told him how we would, in the old days in my village, to relate to it. I said there was a way that if there was somebody far away from you, maybe a mile or two, and he wanted to tell you something, he would open his mouth and he said, "Oh, Hussein, son of Hassan." And then somebody would hear that name. He would repeat, "Hussein, son of Hassan." Then the third person, the fourth person. Believe me, sometimes it would take 6, 7 people to relay this call and continue until he give the message and tell him, "I am going to be late for dinner." This was the message, for example. So from that era, from that condition, from that period, I end up to come to America and live in New York City. And I think this is only America. What happened, my ancestor, I think as again Mona mentioned, they became Baha'i, and Baha'i was a religion that was forerunner to the Baha'i faith, and you can have lots of information about the Baha'i faith and Baha'i faith. You can Google it or contact some of your Baha'i friends and get more information if you wish. They, my ancestor became Baha'i, and of course, they were part of minority in that town. There's a historical figure that came to Niriz by the name Bahid, and his coming, of course, caused major upheaval in that town. A couple of thousand of the inhabitants of Niriz, and they were, of course, getting confrontation with the majority, which were Muslim, and there was a series of battle and fight took place, and they killed most of them. And of course, among them were many of my ancestors, and we have documented, we have written it. As a matter of fact, I have written a book recently called Foreigner that I have detailed all this information, or another book called Awakening, that is the story of Bahid and what happened in Niriz. So in that condition, in that miserable state, which being part of minority, suffer a great deal in the hands of majority constantly. I remember, for example, in the month of Muharram, which is one of the terrible months in Islamic calendar, is a month that Imam Hussein was martyred. And in that month, Baha'is were constantly subject to humiliation and attack and all kind of abuse. So we left the village of Niriz. My father eventually could not take it anymore because they burned his business and we could not survive. We went to a bigger city. This happened to many Baha'is in Iran in 1950s and 60s because they couldn't take the pressure and attack anymore. So they moved to Shiraz or Isfahan or Tehran. These are the bigger cities in Persia, as you know. Now, this continued until 1979, which again, another revolution took place by our friend Ayatollah Khomeini. And then after that, again, a large number of Baha'is left the country. They came to America, they went to Australia, and they went to the other part of the world. So of course, I was not part of that wave of the exodus or the people who left because I came earlier in 60s. I arrived in America. I took a ship from Southampton, England. I landed in New York City. I paid $50 for that boat ride on Queen Mary. Actually, the Queen Mary right now is in Long Beach. And if you have any time to go and visit it, they made a hotel out of it in California. So I stayed in the YMCA, and suddenly I realized, my God, what a terrible mistake I have made. I didn't know the language, I had no money, I missed my family, and I have to face the reality of life. The picture I had of America, of course, was Marilyn Monroe, Gregory Peck, Leslie Caron, Tony Curtis. Some of the old-timers remember all this wonderful character in the movies and cinemas. And I thought I come to America, I ride on the fancy cars, enjoy the beautiful highways, dance with beautiful ladies. How little I knew that as a refugee and as an immigrant, I'm going to face serious, serious problem. And also remember that I had the student visa. I had to attend the college full time. And then of course, for survival, I have to work, which was not allowed. And if immigration office would find out that I'm working, they would kick me out. They would deport me. That's one reason my heart still is for those who are undocumented citizens. Now, I started to get variety of job in the chemical company, in the hotel, in the factories and all that. I almost became an undertaker, but eventually I got the job as a dishwasher in the restaurant, which for me was ideal. They fed me well, they pay me cash money, and I stayed as dishwasher for a while, and this was a night job, so in daytime I could go to school. Most my co-worker and the people that I associated were young Black men and sometimes women. And for me, it was very important to learn English as soon as possible. So I was anxious to talk to these folks who were working with me, as I said, mostly Black folks. And I would start to tell them about my religion, my family, my education, and I begged them for them to tell me about their background. And of course, it amazed me that their ancestors and their background is so similar to mine. I wonder how many of our Persian friends realize that the suffering and the plight of the Baha'is in Persia is quite similar to the plight and problem and difficulties that the Black are facing in this country. So we should be extremely sympathetic to their problem. So they would tell me that their ancestor came here as a slave, and later on they went through a whole period of lynching and killing and burning, that they would come to the Ku Klux Klan, come at nighttime, they burn the cross in their lawn, they drag the man out of the house, they hang them by the tree, and they burn them sometime. So this was exactly what happened in my village to my family. In 1909, 18 of my family and other relatives in my town, they were all put to death, cut to pieces, or they were hanged by the tree and they burned to death. So I want to emphasize that this was how I got involved with the Black community and eventually got involved with Harlem Prep. Here it comes 1963, and Martin Luther King was appearing in Washington for his famous march. The excited young man who was very involved in what was happening those days, anti-Vietnam War, civil rights movement, assassination of John Kennedy and all that. So a few of us decided to go to Washington to participate in the march. It was an amazing experience for us, 18, 19, 20 years old kids. Of course, we had no money to go to hotel or motel. We slept in a car for 2-3 days, but we participated in listening to all kind of lecture, and many people were there, John Lewis, Martin Luther King, and a whole bunch of other people. We were dreaming and we were talking, is it possible that one day, even in Persia, we may have something similar happen? And Martin Luther King appear and change our society. Of course, we have to remember that the Baha'i movement and Babi movement was very similar to what the Martin Luther King has preached in this country. The Baha'is in Persia have practiced non-violence resistance for the last 150 years. And they took all abuse, they took all the harassment, and they continue to stay firm in their faith and continue the march. So, came back from Washington, continue suffering, working dishwashing and doing all kind of things until about 67, 68. Suddenly, my luck was opened up for me. I met this beautiful woman who I used to know in Persia. Her name was Tahireh. She was a doctor. She was good looking. She had the green card on top of everything else. She was from a good family. I said, my God, this is a heavenly. So I married her right away. I don't know why she married me, but that's a different story. So we married, and around the same time, I become more active in Baha'i community, because those first few years, I was not really that involved. I was here and there, would go to some activity, but not that much. So I became a sort of little scholars about the Babi history. And I would teach courses in Greenacre Baha'i School or Bush Baha'i School or Llewellyn Baha'i School. One of those occasions when I was in Greenacre Baha'i School, which is in the state of Maine, north of United States, a Black couple came to my sessions, Ed and Ann Carpenter, most loving people that you can ever meet in your life. And they were so excited to meet me because they have never met a Persian Baha'i. And especially Ed was so interested in the history of Babi faith. He would attend all the sessions. He would sit down during lunch and dinner and nighttime and keep asking questions. So we became quite a close friend. And then I found out that they are thinking, and people have approached them, that possibly opening a school in New York City for the high school dropout. I found out that they were anxious and they wanted other people to participate in brainstorming and supporting the idea. I found out there were Catholic nuns involved, some civil rights leaders were involved, some rich Jews in New York were involved, the white people were quite active, the Harlem community was involved. So it was the most exciting thing I could ever dream of that I can be part of. So as soon as I came back to New York, I contact them again, and it goes my relation with Ed and Ann Carpenter and Harlem Prep. What was Harlem Prep? I guess some of you who are older remember, and it's still the problem in some part of America is the same. The condition and circumstance of the Black community in the inner city of America was most horrible condition that you can imagine. Education, forget it. Health, awful. Nutrition, forget it. Transportation, not existence. What else? Housing was awful. These were, of course, again, the same thing that I experienced in Persia, but here I see in the promised land. In America, there are millions of people who are suffering from the same problem and difficulty. So the group of us, and Baha'is, of course, were in the forefront of this, they were thinking, what can we do tangible? Small steps. We don't have to save the world. But they say, think globally and do something locally. So that's what we really practice. We decided that we're going to help to open a high school for the young Black and some Spanish kids and trying to help them to get to college. And the program was that you would come to us, regardless of your age, your background, you stay with us for 1 year, And if you really take care of business, we promise to place you in any college that you want. And with the connection we had through the nuns and through the Black leaders and others, we made some arrangement with universities that they took a chances on us. The first group, I think, was 39 of them. They automatically, after 1 year, they went to universities. Suddenly, the news got out that there is a miracle happening in Harlem, that on the corner of 136th Street and 8th Avenue, they are doing something which unheard of. They take a Black kids who have given up on himself and others have given up on them, and they get them ready and prepare them for college. Thanks God, foundation, corporation, the people with money, they came to our help. Thousands and millions of dollars start to pour in, because they really, in 1960s, some of you may remember, there was a tendency, I feel the same thing is happening now. There was a tendency trying to solve once for all this racial curse in this country and try to help as much as you can to bring some of these poor kids out of the poverty and make a good citizen out of them. And we succeeded. Within the 10 years that the school was open, we placed and we graduated more than 1,000 kids from university. They became doctor, lawyer, engineer, and all that. And I'm really grateful for those years that I spent my life. And I think if there is a heaven, for sure I go there because of what I did. So you pray for me, see what happened. I had the chance, because of the school, what was happening, to meet and work with some of the great Black leaders in this country. James Farmer, the founder of the CORE, Whitney Young, the head of National Urban League, who else? Many were, Governor Rockefeller, Senator Javed. These were the people who were quite involved in Harlem Prep. Some great musicians that would help us do fundraising. Sammy Davis Jr., Dizzy Gillespie, Lionel Hampton, Billy Taylor, and a whole bunch of others who were anxious, Pete Seeger, and others who were anxious to also do something to help a minority and help their students. I'm getting too excited. I hope I don't have a heart attack. So life went on, and we grow up with a number in terms of student body. It reached a point that we have about 700 students at some point, and we require millions of dollars to continue. And it became impossible to raise that kind of money. Foundation and corporation, like Ford Foundation, who help us, Rockefeller Foundation, Chase Manhattan Foundation, Union Carbide, Coca-Cola Company, many of these companies, they pour in thousands, millions of dollars. But then they have a tendency that they don't want to be indefinitely committed and involved in any project. What they call it, they give them seed money, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And after that, they want to move to some other project. Of course, the American economy was not in a good shape either in late 1970s. And so combination of these two made us to make a choice. Either we have to close the school because we could not raise money anymore in that level, or we have to go with the Board of Education. There was a debate, discussion, consultation, lots of it among the faculty, among us. What shall we do? Shall we die heroically and make the front page of New York Times that another project died in Harlem? Or shall we provide jobs for these poor teachers? We had about 60, 70 faculty members by now. Half of them were Baha'is. And then eventually the faculty voted that they want to go with the Board of Education. And of course, myself and Ed Carpenter, my boss, I became Assistant Headmaster by now, and he was the headmaster. We decided we really don't want to be part of Board of Ed. You know, we can always get the job someplace else. So we left, but the school became part of Board of Education. And there was, I want to tell you a story, cue the story, because I noticed at the beginning, no, I don't repeat this. Most of the negotiation with Board of Education in terms of transition from a private alternative school to public Board of Education school was done by me, dealing with a man by the name Dr. James Boffman, a distinguished Black educator who was the head of the high school division in the city of New York. It was a big position. Now you have 200,000-300,000 students, and he was controlling that. So for a couple of months, I would meet with him almost weekly, and we had different discussion taking place. In one occasion, he said, Dr. Ahdieh, you have a slight accent. You know, he always called me Dr. Ahdieh, and I call him Dr. Bachman. I said, a slight accent, Dr. Bachman, is a heavy accent, okay? And then he said, where you come from? I said, I'm from Persia. Oh, he said, Persia, Persia. You mean Iran? I said, no, Persia. I said, then I told him, no, it's Persia because when you say Persia, you think of a Persian cat, you think of Persian rock, you think of Omar Khayyam, you think of Hafiz and Saadi. But when you say Iran, right away you mix us with all fanatics and different problem and this and that. So I'd rather be Persian. So I said, okay. But then he said suddenly, you know, Dr. Ahdieh, when I was at Sorbonne University during the Second World War, I had the roommate who was from your country. Oh, I says, wonderful. Do you remember his name? He said, no, unfortunately, I forgot his name. But I remember one thing. We used to travel together for 3-4 years during the holidays and summer. And he had the black book. In the black book, he had a bunch of addresses. So we go to Belgium, we go to Yugoslavia, this and that. And he would look at his black book, find the address. We go to someone's house. He would knock at the door. They open the door, and he would exchange some secret code with them. And immediately they open the door, they come and hug us and kiss us. But I forgot that secret word. I told him, Dr. Bachman, was that secret word Allahu Akbar? Oh my God, you should see this man, 6'5" tall, jumped from his seat, came around, gave me a hug, and he said, you know, I've been looking for this secret code for last 4. And then I told him it was a Baha'i greeting. So I thought I'd share this with you because at the beginning, when everybody was coming and joining the Zoom, they say Allah Akbar, Allah Akbar. So I just want to explain that Allah Akbar is a greeting among the Bahá'ís, like Shalom or Salam or thing like this. So that's, it was a glorious time that I was in Harlem Prep. And I think I'm going to stop here. So I take a break and asking Mona Khanom to show some pictures, and I would give you a little more information. Then I can answer all your questions. Go ahead, Mona Khanom.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Ahdieh, do you want me? I have your PowerPoint. Do you want me to share that PowerPoint with everyone?
Please.
Okay,
yes.
sure. I will do that right now.
Thank you, Aziz.
Thank
you.
Shall I make a comment as we go along?
Sure, please. And let me know when to
let you know when
move the slide. Yes.
Okay, this is a very famous picture. I'm sure you all have seen it. It's my favorite picture of the March of 1963 with Martin Luther King. And oh, by the way, later on, I may have a picture of the organizer of the Mr. Ruston, who organized this. He became a very close friend of Harlem Prep and a good friend of Baha'i faith. And he came to many gatherings. We may have his picture. I will show you later. This was the gathering in Washington, D.C., 63. Next. Okay, this is interesting. I want to share with you. You know, the school was an unusual school. The place used to be a supermarket, a huge supermarket, the whole New York block almost. And what happened, they have opened a supermarket there, but I think a couple of their managers got shot or killed overnight because of danger to have business in that area those days. So they have to get out of business. So they gave us almost free this school and then this building. And we, with the help of Union Carbide and other companies, we carpeted the green beautiful. And there was no such a thing as a classroom. No, you're going too fast now. Oh, yeah, here. And there was a modular things. Where, you know, they would set up the area with different classes, different learning process. And when we wanted, we could move all the chairs and all the tables, and we have a big assembly meeting. And you notice on the wall, it said Mojo logo. This was the motto of the school, unity and brotherhood is a word in Swahili. Go ahead, next. Oh, that's my brother, Ed Carpenter. We try to make sure that as an administrator, we also teach, because that was really the purpose of the school. I was a math teacher, as also helping administration. This is Ed Carpenter teaching one of the classes. He was most charismatic individual, great speakers. Oh, I tell you a story about his speaking. We were in the very rich woman apartment. Sheila Mosler was her name. Rich, beautiful white woman. Her father was has at this railroad company that take north of New York. Her husband owned Mosler safe. You know, if you go to any major bank, when you see those huge safe, is all was made by her husband. Mosler locks and safe are famous. So she had this fundraising gathering in her apartment, and some of these rich people, you know, and her friends and others were present. And Ed Carpenter, my buddy, make a presentation, beautiful presentation, talk about the Harlem Prep, talk about the school, talk about the Baha'i, what is the Baha'i education, what is the whole idea. I remember that night he talks about was, there is a quote, he used a quote from Baha'u'llah that they said you are he said you are a hidden treasurer, and all you have to be polished to show is light and his glory. And he wanted to show that our students are those hidden treasures that need some polishing and some cleaning and some attention. And it was amazing. When it finished, somebody asked him, said, Dr. Carpenter, who is your guru? Who is, you know, everybody has a guru these days. So who is one that you follow philosophically, educationally? And he said, Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah. And I was confused, the people, you know, who is this Swiss educator that he's talking about? Baha'u'llah, Baha'u'llah. Well, of course, those who are interested, we explain to them. Next picture. Oh, this is a gathering in one of the top clubs in New York called Baron Jazz Club. Two of my good friends are there. On the right side, you see Mr. Olinga, who is a distinguished Baha'i. We call him Hand of a Cause. On his left, there is Dizzy Gillespie. And that particular night, Mr. Olinga asked me if he could meet with Dizzy. So I made arrangement to go to the club that he was performing. And you should see when we entered this club, this is a big, big club in Harlem. And then as soon as we entered the club, I waved my hand. He was on the stage with his band. And you remember the way he played, and he suddenly stopped the music and he said, brother and sister, the lion heart of Africa, the conqueror, Olinga is here, and I have written a piece of music in his honor, and I'm going to play for you. And then as he was playing the Olinga's piece, we walked to our table, we made a reservation, and then there's a custom or tradition in some of this club that when you have a distinguished guest, everyone would send you a bottle of booze. My God, within a few minutes, our table was full of whiskey and scotch and this and that. And photographer were taking pictures. I said, boy, I'm in big trouble. They're going to say Hussein Ahdieh took the Hand of a Cause to a club, and look what all the booze on the table. So we got rid of the booze right away. Told them, please take it to the kitchen and give it to the help. Oh, Ed Carpenter and his wife were sitting right there. That's why I include this picture. So I have lots of good memory from that night. Dizzy came and joined us, and we had a beautiful evening that night together. Next. I told you that lots of companies were really supporting us. One of the main one was a company called Exxon Corporation. You all know Exxon. They gave millions of dollars to Harlem Prep. In this occasion, he came, the one who's sitting is the chairman of the board, CEO of Exxon Corporation. And I think he brought the check, I don't remember if it was $300,000 or $500,000. Those days, that was lots of money. And these are a bunch of students, and there's a Judge Mangum on the left, and Ann Carpenter. So that he took this picture with them. Next. The good-looking guy on the microphone is me. This is one of our graduation. I want to look at this guy, the white person on the left side. He's the chairman of the board of Coca-Cola Company. And he came for one of our graduation ceremony, and he gave a beautiful presentation. Coca-Cola was another big supporter of school. And actually, that day was very interesting. The speaker for that day was Minister Farrakhan. And it struck the hell out of him because Minister Farrakhan, you have heard some of his talk. It was sort of extreme presentation. But anyway, he sat there and listened to him. And I'm sure he went back home and tell all his friends that he has met Minister Farrakhan. Next. Oh, this is my good idol. Pete Seeger was a good friend of Harlem Prep. He had the ship that he sailed along the Hudson River. It's a major river in New York area. It was quite polluted. And he made his mission to clean that river. And for a couple of years, he was constantly sailing back and forth and was constantly in the news. And he contacted us that if you like, we can send some of our students to help him in this journey. And they would do good experience for them to be on the ship and enjoy the life on the sea. And many years later, when I met him in some occasion, I don't know where, he was so excited and remembered the old days. And we talked about some of our students that was with him. That's Pete Seeger, the famous folk singer. Next. Oh, but one on the right, I told you, it's Mr. Roston. He's the one who organized the march in Washington. And this other guy on the left is my good friend, Dr. Hushman Taraz, who was the chairman of New York Baha'i Assembly. Look at my hair, Jesus, look at that. Next. Oh, that's another wonderful friend of Harlem Prep. That's Robert Hayden, the famous poet laureate of America. He came a number of times to Harlem Prep. He read his poetry. And well, I'll tell you another story. I love to tell his stories. Whenever he would come to New York and he would come to Harlem Prep, I would ask him, first time I asked him, he said, are you free tonight? We can have dinner together. And he accepted, was very gracious of him. So I think I picked him up from his hotel and I told him, do you mind if we drive from New York to New Jersey and go to a Greek restaurant? Oh, he said, I love to do that. So we drove to this fancy Greek restaurant. I didn't know it was a Saturday night. And that particular night, they had a beautiful belly dancer who was dancing on the floor. I felt a little bit of embarrassed that bring the famous Baha'i, the famous poet to a club with a belly dancer. So we sat down and started to have food, but I noticed that every few minutes, he take his thick glasses off and he cleaned them up and he put it back. I noticed he must be enjoying himself. So that he wants to clean his glasses. So this happened many times, not many times, maybe 5, 6 times, that he come to New York, we get together, and I ask him, where you want to go? He wants to go to that Greek restaurant. So I knew his wife, Irma, in Michigan. And she would come to National Convention as a delegate. I would go there also from New York delegate. And I could not bring myself to tell her that I take your husband to a nightclub and they have belly dancer. So I didn't say anything and she didn't say anything. So a few years later, Robert died. And I went to Michigan to attend his funeral. So I approached Irma and I told him, do you know, on some occasion when Robert was in New York, we used to go to this club and belly dancer. Oh, she laughed. She said he would come back and he would tell me all about it. What a good time he had. And he was always anxious to come to New York. So I realized he'd been telling his wife about the belly dancer. So I didn't feel that guilty. Next picture. Oh, it's my favorite hero. This is Whitney Young. He was the director of National Urban League, one of the greatest civil rights leaders in this country, very close friend of President Johnson. Too bad that he went to Africa, in Nigeria, and while he was swimming in one of the rivers, he was drowned. He was really a big force in lots of 60s. And those who know the civil rights movement, they realize his contribution to the Black and white relation. God bless his soul, with New York. Next. Aha, another character. Don't let his eyes bother you. He's not as bad as he looks. His name is William Buckley. Some of the old-timer may remember him. William Buckley was a top conservative figure in America. He had his TV and PBS program, Firing Line or something. He was really tough cookie. And you know, as a young man, he wrote the book. He attended Yale Law School, I think. He wrote a book called God is Dead at Yale. That made him famous, very controversial. So anyway, I got the call. I want to know that we had so many visitors, believe me, educators, politicians, British, Israelis, Japanese. So I got a call from his secretary that Mr. Buckley would like to come and visit the school. Why? Why you want to come and visit the school, Mr. Buckley? But I cannot say no. Said, please, yeah, sure. So we made an appointment. He came to school. And as we were walking around and he's saying hello to a few of the students, he said, Hussein, no, Dr. Ahdieh, can I meet with the student body and have a chat with them and interact with them? I said, sure, we can do it. So this was one of our practice, that when we had the special guest, we suddenly move all the tables and dividers and all that. We make a huge assembly room. Everybody sit down and listen to a speaker, 500-600 students and faculty. He gave an amazing talk, of course, very controversial and very conservative. I think he was pushing the idea of, what do you call this those days? I don't remember. So anyway, he got in argument with one of our faculty, Dr. Ben. Dr. Ben was one of our teachers, quite a popular teacher, good figure on television series also. He believed that, and partially he was right, that everything has started from Africa. This was the theme of all his lecture. The culture, the civilization, all come from Africa. So this was the discussion between him and William Buckley. Anyway, that finished. Then he came to my office and he said he would like to make a contribution to Harlem Prep. So I said, no problem, please. And I figured out he's going to give a couple of $1,000 as a nice gesture. He wrote a check for $50,000. He must have been very rich. I think his family were in the oil business. He wrote a check for $50,000 to Harlem Prep, and I think that took our payroll at least for a week or so. God bless him if he's dead. Thank you. Next. Oh, another nice guy. This is Dr. Stanwood Cobb. I wish some of you remember these people. They are too young. Stanwood Cobb is considered, along with John Dewey, as the founder of public school system in America, of course, in 1920s. What happened, he became Baha'i and he became so active, pioneering and traveling, and I think he went to Turkey, other places for teaching. So he gave up the public school system ideology. So John Dewey got all the credit. Anyway, but those who were in the field of education, they knew him and they knew his contribution. So I invited him to come to New York and give a talk. I don't know what was a Baha'i sponsored occasion or Harlem Prep occasion. I think it was a Baha'i sponsor. And so he was supposed to talk about Baha'u'llah or some aspect of Baha'i faith. What happened is, just before he goes on stage, I also have invited a group of dancers from Harlem Prep. There were a bunch of young ladies who would come and they dress in African style, and there are boys who were beating the drums, and they would do their things. Oh my God, he got so upset that why these girls are showing so much skin, so much legs. He got very upset and he picked up his jacket and his briefcase and he was walking out. Oh, say, my God, the speaker is walking out. There are a couple of hundred people there. Good number of them are non-Baha'i. President of Teachers College, who knew about him, was sitting right in the front. So I ran after him and said, what's happening, Dr. Cobb? He said, no, how can I talk about Baha'u'llah after this naked woman? I said, they were not naked woman. They had the spiritual dance. I said, no, there's nothing spiritual about this. So I said, please come back. He said, okay, I come back, but I don't talk about Baha'u'llah. I said, talk about anything. It's up to you. So I remember he gave an amazing talk about Marxism and Baha'i faith. and which one is the wave of future. And we all knew that actually this was a talk he gave in 60s, not 60s, was it 60s or early 70s? What happened 20, 30 years later? The whole Soviet Union fell apart, and that was pretty much the end of Marxism, and Baha'i faith is expanding all over the world. So this is my good friend, Dr. Stanford Cobbs. Please study the life of these people and learn more about it. He's the author of some major books that is worthwhile to read.
Those are the girls.
Oh, these are the girls. These are the girls that were dancing that night and got our friend Stanford Cobbs upset. They look pretty good. There's nothing wrong with those. Go ahead, next. Oh, it's my good friend, Robert Wilkin, who was our science teacher. The student loved him. So it's a nice picture, actually. This is my two favorite lady, Dr. Ann Carpenter and Dr. Wilma Ellis, cousins are there, and we were serving in some kind of community together. I don't know whether it was helping Harlem Prep or was a Baha'i faith that we were serving together. Next. So this was, most likely there was a concert in school, and Ed and I were enjoying ourselves. Oh, the guy behind me is an interesting guy. His name was George Simmons. Ed Carpenter, he told us one day he was walking in the street of Harlem, and he noticed George Simmons is preaching to some folks just on the street corner. He got so impressed with what he was talking and how intelligent he was, and this and that. So he got in conversation with him, and then he asked him, would you like to come to Harlem Prep and become a teacher? This guy, I don't think so. He didn't even have a high school diploma, but he was one of the most beloved teachers we had. And the student learned so much from him. God bless you, George Simmons. Next. Oh, these are, the nuns were really the backbone of Harlem Prep. They were all part of this Manhattanville College groups. They were very liberal. They were sort of reform nuns. And this is Sister Elizabeth McLaughlin. And I think she was a math teacher. And she and few other nuns, they did an amazing job to help the school. Oh, this is the most happy occasion. This was the graduation day. It always happened out in the streets on some corner of Harlem. It's, I think, 125th and Adam Clayton Powell Avenue. Was attended by hundreds of parents and supporters of schools and all that. So we just want to showcase our case and get the community to support and love us. Next. This is my favorite lady, Ann Carpenter. The guy on the right is the chancellor of the Board of Education in New York. You know, he was in charge of 1 million students that we have in New York. He did a good job, actually. Was a good friend. Again, this is the Exxon CEO with Ed Carpenter, and I don't remember the guy's name. He was a lawyer from Wall Street, in Board of Trustee of the school. Oh, that's my friend, one wonderful Baha'i, Amos Gibson. You may have heard his name. He was a member of House of Justice, and a couple of times that he came to New York, he visited us in school, and it was a pleasure to see him and his family. Amos Gibson. Next. There's Mr. Charles Rangel. He's a Congressman Rangel, and I'm giving him some kind of plaque as recognizing his help and support of Harlem Prep. And this is Gillespie. I think it was one of the fundraising occasion, and that's me, and that's my better half, Tahere, the one who saved me. This is a typical gathering of the faculty and the staff in the earlier days. Tony Lewis is another Baha'i on the right. Those are the nuns. Ed Carpenter is there, and some other faculty members. A good man, a good friend, Barry Goldenberg has worked on a book about Harlem Prep, which is going to be published, I think, by Rutgers University. And I think Hilary Chapman, myself, we also wrote a book about Harlem Prep, and is available on Amazon for more information. Is there another picture? Or that's it?
No, I think this is Maybe oh, there
Okay,
is. This is the
yes.
school.
This is the front of the school, and some student just passing by. This whole block was the school, and this is the modular classroom that, as I said, divider, table, chairs, and you could move all these, become open space. And it's interesting thing that one of the teacher noticed is that there are lots of time I have a student in my class, and suddenly I see he noticed that there is something more interesting happening next door. So he or she would get up and they go sit in next group. And I said, I don't mind as long as some learning is taking place. What difference does it make? So this was the setup. God bless her. This was the Herman Miller Furniture Company who gave us all this furniture. There were lots of good people in this world. Oh, we had okay, thank you.
That was it, Dr. Ahdieh.
Very good. Thank you, Aziz. No, if there is any question, any comment, I would love to answer and have a dialogue and have a question answer.
If we can ask the friends to please raise their electronic hand so we can go in that order, or you can also write your questions in the chat box so we can also refer to that.
Electronic hands. I'm tired. 44 people.
Okay, Mrs. Tahireh, please unmute yourself.
Aloha to everyone. I just had the two questions from Mr. Ahdieh. What's happened to that school right now? And is there any other Baha'is right now working in that school or no? Thank you.
That school is a high school within the Board of Education of New York. It has become just a traditional average high school. I'm sure they're doing a good job and they are helping the student. One thing I want to emphasize that even though I'm critical of educational system and what was happening in New York and throughout the country, the people I deal with in the Board of Ed, they were good people. They were not evils. They did not mean to hurt anybody. But then the system itself got so big and it was so unruly that really all kind of things would happen, the trouble and difficulties. I give you example, even in terms of simple security. I'm going to visit a principal of a high school in Bronx. My base was in Harlem, in New York, Manhattan. So I drive there or took a subway. Anyway, I got to a school. There is a gate right by the school, and there are two security standing by the door. I introduced myself. I said, and I have to use my title to impress them. I said, this is Dr. Ahdieh, and I have an appointment, but Mr. So-and-so, I don't remember his name. So he would get on his walkie-talkie, one of the security, and he would contact the guy in the elevator. Hello, Doc Jose. Jose, they couldn't pronounce Hussein, so they called me Jose. Doc Jose is coming, and so the guy by the elevator is waiting for Doc Jose. So I would walk from the gate, from the door to the elevator. The guy would open the elevator. I would go to, let's say, 6th, 7th floor. Then I would find my way to principal office. Just simple meeting that I had, one educator to another. We have to go through this process and a whole bunch of other things. And a simple decision that has been made, shall we use this kind of book or that kind of book? You have to go through the whole process, getting approval, getting review. But when you're small and when you can do your own thing, you don't have all this bureaucratic nonsense that you go through. Lots of this charter school, which is opening these days, they really, I feel like Harlem Prep as an alternative school was the godfather of all these charter schools, thousands of them opening, and lots of them who are familiar with the history of alternative school and charter school, they admitted and they give us the credit, because the idea was to have a small setting, least amount of rules and regulation, get away from so much requirement in terms of certification and licensing and this and that, so we can really concentrate and focus on what is the purpose, to educate those kids. And in our case, to place them in a college. And we prove that it can be done, and we were successful. And as
Wonderful.
I said, the answer was that, yes, that school does exist and is a part of Board of Education now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Diana,
much.
please unmute yourself, Diana. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Diana. I'd like to thank you so very much for this presentation. I kind of relate to it because a similar thing happened when I was in Africa. But what I was wondering is if you were given, if you could, if you were allowed to, and if you had permission to follow through to see what the outcome was once it transferred to the Board of Education.
That's a good suggestion. I don't think, you see, what we did get a big grant from Ford Foundation at some point that I was involved with, to follow up on our students who went to the college and universities, to find out how many of them stayed university, what did they become, what they finish. But I don't think so there was any serious study and research in what happened to Board of Education. I may be able to ask, as I said, my friend Barry Goldenberg has done some serious work about Harlem Prep. He may have done some research, and probably he would discuss this in his book that is coming up soon about the Harlem Prep. His name is Barry Goldenberg. Actually, he's a resident of California now, and I can put his name in the chat room so we can ask him that question too.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck.
I don't see any other hand up. There are a few friends who put some comments in the chat, thanking you, Dr. Ahdieh, for your wonderful presentation and the wonderful pictures. And there's also a request, if possible, for Sandy to maybe have another performance, a song, or maybe a chant for us, if that is possible.
Actually, before we go there, I wanted to see, Dr. Ahdieh, what is the lesson for us today? Like, how can we use, do you think school systems or city governments or communities are open to doing a similar thing? Because I think the problems of the 60s remain with us today. In many cities, we have public school systems that are in really, really bad shape. And then we have, 2 blocks down the street from them, we have a private school that is the best in the world. So that disparity doesn't seem to have disappeared in a lot of places.
I'm an old man now. I don't look it, but I am old. It's so funny. Many people keep telling me, for your age, you look so good. I said, well, you have to mention my age. Can't you just tell me I look good? So anyway, I have reached a point that I've given up on this grand design to solve big, big problem. I believe as an individual, especially as Baha'is, we could take some small steps in our daily life and our interaction, especially when it comes to question of these days that we have so much this racial tension and trouble going on. That as Robert Henderson said, that okay, we could join the company and have a black colleague in the company. You can go to university, has a fellow student who's from minority, but how often you have a black man and woman as a guest in your house to share a dinner with? I really, I think to solve this problem that we are facing, if we can take some small steps and become a real human being in terms of our interaction, there's a long way we have gone. And of course, if there are, and I'm sure there are lots of active Baha'is, who they can get together and they set up a small program, deal with the climate, deal with education, deal with the helping the elders and all that. That's great also. But don't, they often ask me, some of this charter school, which if I want to become part of their board and help them with this and that, of course, I always say no, because it's really, I don't have energy to do that, all that work anymore. But I think I spend more time these days to go out of my way to find somebody who is not necessarily invited to a Persian dinner to have some rice and polo and khoresh and this and that. That I think is the answer to lots of our difficulties we are facing.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, a friend asked for the link that was in one of your slides. So I'm sharing that there. That was the link that was in one of the slides towards the end. And also Dr. Ahdieh shared the name of Barry Goldenberg, that you can find his name and him on Facebook. So these are the two names that we have found.
That's very true. Also, I'm sure it's, we can also, I think I'm going to ask Tatiana we have a website called Harlem Prep School. Is it .org or .com, Tatiana?
.com.
.com.
I'm writing it here.
Yeah, she's going to put the name of that website. And for more information, for more pictures, you can always go to that website. And in there also, I'm sure I have made a reference to the book that they have published and described the background of some of our students, some of the faculty members, the founding, who was behind the school, who are the power broker, and things like this. So that would be your homework if you like to continue your study of the subject.
Okay, so a couple of things in the chat I'm just sharing. And then the website is also displayed here in the chat. So Mrs. Muafaq, you have your hand up. Please unmute yourself.
Allah, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. I wish I had opportunity to invite a good number of my friends. I didn't think about it, but I would love to have you, if you have a YouTube, your talk today, so I could send it to them.
Yes, just leave your name in the chat room, your email address. We have a couple of YouTube presentation on Harlem Prep. The talk I have given, similar talk. One I think was in some place in Arizona, and then there was 2 occasions. And I have a feeling that they recorded and they put on YouTube, so I could share those with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. Thank you.
Yeah, a pleasure. Thank you.
Also,
Welcome.
Dr. Ahdieh, anyone who wants a link to today's talk, it's being recorded. Just please type your email address in the chat and I will send it to them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Manager.
Thank you.
And we have Diana. Please unmute yourself and your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to understand a little bit more about how the process that you went through at the beginning, but with the community and with the people who then became the ones who were your fundraisers. At one point in Pasadena, we did try to do, we went to the Board of Education and we presented a whole proposal for a charter school. I don't know if you remember that, and we presented it and it was shut down, even though the whole community. So there's a political process also involved, right? So how did you overcome that? Because usually that's what kills these type of initiatives from outside.
Unfortunately, there are forces that well, I may as well be honest with you. The unions often are against this sort of innovation and all, charter schools and alternative schools, because they feel like if these things pick up and became too popular and expand all over the place, they lose their membership and they lose their power. This is unfortunate part. And you know, the politics is often come to the picture because the politicians need their votes and then and all that stuff, which as a Baha'i, I don't want to get too involved in that discussion. But the timing that Harlem Prep was opening, it was a different time. I remember in the forefront of our activity and our push to do something were some wonderful nuns, for example. There were lots of Jews in New York who were actively involved. I remember, for example, I don't know how many of you remember, do you remember Dr. Ruth, who always talked about sex on television? How many of you remember her?
Oh, Ruth, yeah.
She always talked, and she had this heavy Eastern European accent, and she was very involved in Harlem Prep. And she was, later on, she became a volunteer and teaching English. She was a professor at Lehman College. At the same time, she was a survivor of the Holocaust, and she would come to school, and the student hardly could understand her because of her heavy accent, and they would try to escape her. And I remember she was chasing them, and she come to my office, where is Richard? Where is Thomas? Because the schedule was that she's going to work with them. But so I have to grab them and say, please, please, this poor lady has come all the way to help you, go and listen to her. So there were so many enthusiasm from public, from minority, from Black leader, from politician, that the negative forces did not have much chance to oppose us. But I don't know really the circumstance in Pasadena or other places. Somewhere they are more successful than other places. So you got to work out somehow your local situation. I'm sorry to hear that your proposal was turned down.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. So I assume that there are no other questions. If, I think I saw one hand up before. Farida Khanum, you had your hand up before, but you lowered it. Yes, please go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because this morning I didn't have a sound for some reason. Dr. Ahdieh, thank you very much. We learned a lot. You did amazing work. Congratulations for having had such a fruitful life. And
thanks to my wife.
And your suggestion about friends to try to integrate more, especially at dinner table. It's the best location to meet friends of diverse races. And at the same time, I wanted to say that this is can be very challenging. We have to be more knowledgeable about the background of our guests. God forbid we say something that could be offensive. I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate on that a little bit.
Unfortunately, this has become a challenge in the last few years, that the people have become extremely sensitive to the language. In my days, in my younger days, it was not so bad. Nowadays, the moment I cannot even tell a woman, you look so beautiful. I mean, obvious that in old days, when I would say somebody's beautiful. No, if I say that, said, oh, you only look at my body? You don't think of my brain? You don't think my soul? Well, I'm sorry, but that's how I think, So these are the kind of thing you have to be watch. And the only way is to, I guess, immerse yourself in the contemporary culture to see what's going on, what is okay, what's not okay. There are some extreme cases that of course, you have to be idiot to make that such a big mistake. If you make awful jokes about some racial joke, if you say something which is not appropriate, but then at the same time, if you become friendly with people, they forgive you. And especially if you are Persian, you're a foreigner, they say, oh, he doesn't know any better. So that was my excuse all these years, that we could get away with that. So that's my advice at this point.
Tell the story from the school with the gun.
My assistant, I have a wonderful assistant here who's a kind of a hidden imam. She sits back there and does everything, but she doesn't show her face. Tatiana Jordan, she's a wonderful Baha'i from Bulgaria, and she and her husband are take care of the Baha'i Center, and she helped me with some of this technology. She mentioned I should tell you a story. I'm sitting in my office in Harlem Prep. One of my teacher came and he said, Doc, they used to mean Doc. I said, Doc, there's a guy upstairs. They had 2-floor school. There's a guy upstairs with a gun in his hand and he's walking on the floor. I said, oh, Jesus Christ, guy with the gun on the floor. So I went up there. I have to do something. I cannot forget about it. I went there. I approached him. I asked him, can I help you? And he was a little bit vulgar. He said, who are you? I said, I'm a school director. He said, oh, you're no director. I said, well, I am. What can I do for you? Yeah, what are you doing here? I'm looking for, he mentioned somebody's name, Joe Smith, for example. I said, what do you want from him? So I want to kill him. So you want to kill him? And meanwhile, of course, he had the gun in his hand. So I said, why do you want to kill him? He said, he owed me $20 and he hasn't paid me. I said, Jesus, my God, he's going to kill the guy for $20. So what the hell can I do now? I told him, listen, fellow, give me a big favor. Wait until 3 o'clock and kill him outside the school. Look, I don't want to get involved. And he laughed. He said, I told you you're no goddamn director. So we break the ice and we have a talk. And I think I even gave him $20 so he would not kill the kids. And then later on, he came back. I think he came back and became one of our students. God bless him. He was a good kid. We had lots of black Muslim kids, by the way. In 1960s, 70s, there was a big push and big drive by the black Muslim with the Malcolm X and with the Minister Farooq Khan, Elijah Muhammad from Chicago and all that. So a good number of our students were from black Muslim background. And they were so nice and neat and talk so proper and so like quite a gentleman and carry themselves. And they were some of the most successful students that we had. So I don't know why I'm saying all these things, but I thought I'll share you some stories. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
I'll listen to you forever.
So I don't see any other hands or comments in the chat. And we are close to our time. Can we have Sandy, are you available to sing for us or chant for us something?
Sandy.
Are you available, Sandy?
Yes.
Yes,
she made the face of yes.
Yes.
Okay, can you raise your hand so we can see you?
Okay, good, Sandy, good job.
Okay, so Sandy, if you could please unmute yourself.
Okay, yeah, you had to unmute me so I could unmute myself.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to say. Dr. Ahdieh, I really appreciated your candor and your levity and your good advice. I am one of the founders of the LA Race Consultation. We have every Sunday, which you are welcome anytime to come and join us. I'll put it in the chat. We have people from all over Los Angeles that we just decided nobody was talking about racism. And we actually had the first title that came up was Rooting Out Racism in Los Angeles. So we've been doing this for about a year almost. and coming up on our anniversary. So if you want, any of you want to come, it'd be wonderful, because we just need to talk about all of those things that you're talking about. But I really appreciate all of the things that you said, you know, coming to dinner, coming to my house, because and loving one another. The formality has to go. Shoghi Effendi talked about all of that. So you have been a wonderful, it's just so refreshing. I want to cry. Your life is just refreshing, that your associates and the love that was obvious between you when we saw those pictures. That made my day. So thank you. And you look good, by the way. So
For my age.
now, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, I said maybe he's got one of those filters on there that just makes him.
That's all right. I'm joking. I love you, Sandy. Thanks a lot, Aziz.
No, it's great. Yeah. So I'll just sing. She asked me to sing the Unity Prayer. So it's not the normal melody. I made this one for my daughter when she was 7 years old. And it seems, I don't know if everybody on the call is Baha'i or not, but the unity of humanity is our job for being on this planet at this time. That's what we're all supposed to be doing, something to contribute to that process, and eliminating racism is the most vital part of it for this country. So I'm just so happy that a Persian man is talking like a regular human being. I mean, just, I don't feel the formality. I feel the love and the informal association just over the Zoom call. So I hope I get to meet you one day.
I love to see you, Sandy.
Where are you?
I'm in New York City. You can come anytime.
Yeah.
Without your husband.
After COVID, I'll bring him too. He's a musician, so we'll come and bring music.
Okay, Aziz.
Wonderful. You can perform at the Baha'i Center.
Yeah, that'd be great. We're working on video for it to sound right. So if you don't mind, I'll just sing this very simple.
Anytime. I love it.
Okay. Oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal to them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor, and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, leave them not unto themselves. Guide their steps by the light of thy knowledge, and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art their helper and their Lord. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Rajma, thank you for organizing these things. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ahdieh.
Thank you, Friday.
Thank you, Tatiana, Iraj, all the friends who showed up. Please put your email and I'll send you.
Have a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for having us.
Okay.
Yeah, you look good too.
Thank you. She's a rare species. Can you imagine a Bulgarian Baha'i? Don't have that many of them around.
Thank you, Sandy. We're so grateful.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ahdieh. Thank you so much, everyone. It was a wonderful session.
Thank you.
Love you all. Good night.
Aloha.
Thank you. Allah. Good night.
Oh, Dr. Ahdieh,
Yes,
do you know Clyde Herring?
Oh, I
Yes.
love Clyde Herring. Actually,
She was invited actually tonight.
yeah, I know Clyde very well. Yes, and
Yeah.
she was very close to Harlem Prep. And actually, in one session I had discussing Harlem Prep, I think she did exactly what you did tonight. She started the meeting with the song, and she finished it with the prayer. So it was wonderful to have you. It reminded me of her, actually.
Oh, thank you. She's on our
Sure.
prayer call in the morning, so you can come to that too. Every morning, 6 o'clock. For you, it's 9, so it's not so bad.
6 o'clock, you get up to pray?
9.
No, there's
9?
6 o'clock.
No, it's 6 o'clock for us in LA.
Really, you do that? You get up 6 o'clock?
For the last 3 years, yes.
It's wonderful. God bless
Wow,
you.
fantastic.
But it's originated in Virginia, so it's only 9 o'clock for them.
This is
Yeah.
that's interesting.
All right.
Send us the email with your information.
I will. I put it in the chat.
Yes.
Are you
Thank
ready? Okay.
Love you. Love you all. Good
Love-
night.
Love you.
Adios,
Thank
amigos.
you so much,
Thank you.
Dr. Ahdieh. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a